Alright, let's move on to being able to change lock targets. Last time we set up how to lock on enemies, now we need to change over to different ones. Simply create another function. Mine is just called change lock target, easy enough. This is basically like my state machine. You may not need this at all. I'm not even sure I need it. We'll see how I like it. I just added it. It's okay. And basically what we're going to really do is we're going to sphere trace for an object. That's where we're going on to next. But we have to decide, where's the start point, where's the end point. Start point's easy enough. Get actor location. That's Alice. So I'm starting from Alice and I'm gonna push in a direction and pick a new enemy. So that's the start point. What this is this times 0.3 that I have just to kind of pull the sphere trace back. Because it's a radius, so it starts from the center. Unfortunately, you'd push forward, and sometimes the ball would be a little bit behind her, and it'd grab an enemy behind you, even though you push forward. So you're trying to get someone in front of you. So that's what this is. It's just pushing this a little off center, so that it's always kind of in the direction that you pushed off center. So you always get a guy in the direction you're pushing, not the opposite direction sometimes. And then to figure out where we're going to end point, what we do is we just figure out which direction you're pushing from the right joystick. Get the lookup rotation times that -1. That's just so up is down. I mean, up is up and down is up. Down is down. Sorry. The get rate axis. That's the x and the y here. We're going to make a vector. We're going to make a rotation from that axis, and then we're going to break that because we simply want the yaw. We don't want anything else from this. And then from there, we're going to get the camera, and we're going to get that rotation as well. And we're going to add those two yaws together, basically so we know which direction you're pushing, kind of based on what the camera is currently facing, because that's really what you're looking at. So obviously right is right, it'll always be the same. We're going to make a rotation based on those yaws. We're going to get the rotation from the x vector, and we're going to times that by 10,000. So we're going to get this vector, we're going to times it by 10,000. So about 10,000 unreal units or so. So quite a distance out there, starting from the actor location. So we'll just add those together. And that's what we're doing here. We're just getting the direction you pushed, and we're timesing it by 10,000 units starting from the actor location, or 10,000 units or so. And then that'll simply be our endpoint. We got a radius of 300. That works for me. You may need to play on how tight you want your trace to shoot out, or how much larger you may want it to be. And then for there, the object types, for me it's physics bodies. All my enemies are physics bodies. I explain why I do that in another video. You may have different kinds, but basically just look for whatever you're looking for here. Make an array of it. The actors to ignore. For me, I'm ignoring the current lock target. If I'm changing lock targets, I obviously don't want the one I'm currently on. And I also am making an array from the last locked on target. And I'll explain this one a little bit later. Simply make an array, put that there in my actors to ignore. And even though I have ignore self, he actually won't ever really see herself in this because she's not a physics body, so that's not going to be a problem. So you don't need to have that checked on, but I got it checked on. Doesn't really matter either way. And from there, we'll see how this goes. We can lock on, and there's the sphere trace going to the left. And if you want to see it a little clearer, it's a little easier to do it from up here. Locked on, and there it is again, left. And that's how far mine goes. You may want it to be in a different length, and that'll just be your how much you times that by. Once again, that's 10,000 for me. That's 10,000 for me, and that's what that radius of 300 was. It's just creating a ball, and it's shooting that ball off in a distance in the direction in which I pushed. From there, we're simply checking to see if you hit something. False, we're going to do something else up here. And from there, we're also going to break the hit result because we need the actor in which we hit. I take that actor, I cast to them, I make sure they're not dead. If we've hit something, I make sure they're not dead. Obviously, if they are, then basically if they are, we're going to go on and do the second trace here. I'll explain that in a second. But assuming that they're not dead, then I do some things here with my previous lock target, let him know he's no longer locked on. And I set him as the last locked on target. And then I set the new guy we hit, right here, this break hit actor, as the new lock target. From there, we move on to setting this new lock target, and I let them know they're locked on. That's in their their script that's in the enemy script. You may not need things like that. I have it set so that they can drop the decal on the floor over and over again, so they kind of pulsate so you can see them a little easier. You may need something like that. You may need nothing. So you can ignore this if you don't need it. And then I turn this function off, change target input. I turn it off right here. So at this point, if you push it again, you're going to get true, which is going to get absolutely nothing. So I turn that off for 0.3 seconds. So you're not just changing targets over and over again. So you didn't just have the button down on accident for too long and you just pick somebody else really quickly. So I just turn it off for 0.3 seconds also, so we're not running a trace over and over and over again. And then another 3 seconds later, I clear that last locked on target, which would have been the guy we were locked on to the first time. I clear that. And the reason why I have one in the first place of him being the last locked on target is in case you do really quickly try and lock onto somebody and then quickly try and lock onto somebody else. If you're constantly catching the same two actors, this way it's at least taking out the one you were just on, because there's not a good chance that's who you meant to be locked onto. So basically I'm ignoring him for 0.6 seconds here, so you can find somebody else, so it doesn't kind of just bounce between two actors who possibly are really close to each other and getting the sphere trace over and over and over again. So that's why I did that with my last locked on target. You may not need that in the slightest, but my enemies can stand a little close to each other sometimes, so as to make sure I get who I'm actually looking for, that's how I go about it. But what we have is a bit of a problem at this point with doing this just this way, shooting it off of your character and trying to pick a new locked on target. And what that's going to be is, see, if we're here and I push left from Alice, if I push left right now, the player may mean the person standing to the left of our current locked on target, but if I do it from Alice, as we see, there's no one over there, so I hit no one, and therefore I would have not moved over to this person. And that's where this second trace really comes into account for us here. So if we hit no one, which is what happened there, we hit absolutely no one, so we got a false, or if they'd been dead, basically hitting no one. We're gonna go over here and we're gonna do this again. Just this time we're gonna do the same thing where it's the direction we pushed from our right joystick, and we're just gonna start though from the locked target instead. So from the current enemy we're pushing. So if you meant left from the guy you're looking at, as opposed to left from Alice or your character, we're going to start from there this time. I do the same thing with the times 0.45 just to guarantee that you don't kind of end up on the opposite side of what you were pushing in case someone was standing really close to him. Once again, the sphere trace starts from the center. And basically we're just doing the same thing. We're just taking these same numbers. It's the exact same script as this. The only difference is we're putting in the lock target as the actor instead of leaving it as self, meaning Alice. And the 0.45 is a little different because I made this radius a little bit bigger. And it's just because the second time around I figure I just want to catch anyone, so let's make it even bigger. Let's guarantee you're changing at least over to somebody. And we'll go ahead and we put this on for a split second. From there we're really doing the same thing, so we'll go ahead and blow through it real quick. We're just saying if you hit someone, true, and if so, is the exact same script here. We're hitting an actor, we're casting to him, it's not dead. Great, so let's make them the lock target, let them know that the last one was locked off. So this was our previous one because we haven't set them yet. So it's just letting the previous lock target know they're no longer the lock target, and we're setting them as the last one and setting the lock target from the actor we hit this time around, and then it's actually the exact same script. We're both coming to the same place here. And so from there we'll be able to change lock targets based on which direction you're pushing, as well as which direction maybe you meant from the person you're currently locked onto. So we have this, you push right, you end up there. Well, you push a little up and right in that case. And push down, basically you end up there. So as we see, you can make a big mess of this, but this way there's two traces going on, so I can try and do my best to guess which direction you meant from either Alice or from the person you're looking at. And if we hit nothing on either trace, then it simply says ignore lock target input for 0.2 seconds this time, and I give you another shot to change your lock target input. 0.2 seconds later by making it active. And we don't even go through all this. That should be it. From there, you should be able to change the lock target that you're currently looking at, as well as locking onto them if you follow the previous videos. If you guys have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, that'll do it for us today. Thank you. Bye.